Notre Dame went 10-2 last year. They went 9-0 during the regular season. They went 10-2.
And thus concludes your Notre Dame preview.
Undefeated regular season, but they lose to Clemson 34-10 in the rematch of the ACC championship, and then lose 31-14 to Bama in the playoffs. Really efficient across the board. They had some issues finishing drives and giving up big plays, but not everybody did. The line was a beast. Entire defense generated a ton of havoc plays. They're really good. Kyren Williams emerged.
Gone.
Defensive coordinator, I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
I'm getting to that, I promise.
Okay.
Kyren Williams emerged. Maybe one of the best running backs in the country this year. We'll see.
Sure. I honestly have not heard his name as much as I would expect to, given his success last year. And like a really nice, got kudos for his blocking and his ability out of the backfield at times, catching the ball. So, yeah, a really, really strong emergence for the Irish.
Oh, for sure. And, love him or hate him, the offense did flow through Ian Book, and it was damn effective.
Sure.
I was not always Ian Book's biggest fan, but it flowed. It flowed through Ian Book for sure. So that brings us now to where we go from here. And there are two sides of curb appeal for Notre Dame. I'm going to play it again just because.
I'm one of those boys that appreciates a fine body regardless of the make.
There are people out there who roll their eyes every time we bring up Notre Dame. And so let me start with the appeal for you. There are only
what is the appeal for me?
For you? Okay. No. I'm giving you the appeal.
Oh, you're giving me the appeal. I thought you wanted my big picture Notre Dame thought.
I don't care what you think about Notre Dame. You know
I have. Oh my God, I've got scrolls here on my thoughts. Continue.
There are only 3 starters back on offense. They're leaning on Jack Coan to be their starting quarterback, probably in week 1. He's not going to have an experienced line in front of him. There's only 1 starter coming back, and they've got a transfer, Kane Madden from Marshall. Wide receiving core is all over the place, kind of a mystery. They also lose 5 guys on defense, including their Butkus Award winner.
Yeah. Jeremiah was a havoc player.
And if you want to count Clark Lee, leaving to go to Vandy, that 6 starters. So there's a lot of turnover here in the season where turnover isn't exactly, at least roster turnover isn't so much a recurring theme. Notre Dame finds itself in a spot where they got to replace a lot. That's the bad. If you're a hater, that's what you focus in on. If you're a Notre Dame fan, you get Kyle Hamilton back. Really, what else do you need? What else? What else do you New rowback face athlete.
Endorser?
Endorser.
Spokesperson?
Yeah. So he's back. Secondary should be good. A little thin in the back, but they're really good.
Okay.
Should be solid in the front 7 as well. Marcus Freeman comes over. He replaces Clark Lee, shifting up the defense a little bit. They, for a while now, have played more of a 4-2-5. Marcus Freeman likes to play more of a conventional 4-3, just minor stuff. But I think the defense will be very solid. I think defense will lead this team.
I was pretty sure it was more of a hybrid last year for Cincinnati and Marcus Freeman, like a 3-3-5-4-3 hybrid. Like he experimented with fronts. This year, it's going to look on the Notre Dame side. It's going to look more like a 4-3. Yeah. Okay.
Offensively, though, it's a changing of the guard, and even though the line is inexperienced, it is still loaded with talent because Notre Dame's recruited very well up front. That's been kind of the tent pole of Brian Kelly's recruiting strategy now for the last however many years.
Yeah, both sides of the ball. Developing NFL players along the line of scrimmage.
It will take them a while to learn to play together. I don't think it's going to be a total dearth of talent, though. I don't think it's going to fall. The bottom's not going to fall out in the offensive line. It just might take them a little bit to actually gel.
Right.
Their development's going to be very important because Tommy Rees, in most of what he's said thus far this preseason, he's very focused on trying to get Kyren Williams and Chris Tyree the rock as much as he can. He's even experimented a little bit, or he's talked about experimenting with getting them both in the field at the same time. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm all for it.
Slot back situation, yeah.
It's a little too oop-de-oop, but Chris Tyree is a gifted athlete who they can move around. So we'll see.
Definitely.
We'll see. They've also got Michael Mayer back, who I was looking at his picture when he was 18. He looks like he's an American Gladiator. I don't know how that happens, but young guy, second year, was a force last year. He's their leading returner leading returning receiver.
Yeah, McKinley's gone.
Right. And then there's Jack Coan, Dan. How people feel about Jack Coan probably says more about them than it does actually about Jack Coan.
Do people have lots of strong Jack Coan thoughts?
More than you would expect. I am not a Coan head. You know this about me. I'm not a Coan head.
You dabbled.
I didn't, though. I never liked him.
I mean, you liked him enough to give him a nickname.
It was just so easy. I had to.
I know.
I am not a Coan head. I think he's very average, especially against a blitz. But I guess the appeal would be that he is different than Ian Book. Different's not always better, but if Ian Book was frustrating for me to just watch him scramble around and not set his feet and not look downfield to make those big passes, that is not Jack Coan's game. Jack Coan is very much a pocket passer, and he's very much someone who wants to look down the field and try to hit some of those bigger plays. Now, is that better? I don't know. Ian Book won more games than any other Notre Dame quarterback. It's tough to replace that. So, no, I don't think Jack Coan is going to come in and be better. I'm very skeptical.
I almost think, by the way, Jack Coan and Tommy Rees are like a match made in heaven. Not necessarily a good thing for Notre Dame, but Jack Coan was extremely accurate, didn't really go downfield for Wisconsin because that was much more of an offense built around
running team.
Ball control, and then you're talking about sort of the best of JTT during that Rose Bowl. He's a Rose Bowl quarterback is what he is. Which is something. It's absolutely something. He protected the ball well. He didn't throw a ton of picks for Wisconsin. He wasn't asked to make difficult throws all the time. But I think you could do worse. But
you could definitely do worse.
Yeah, if the issue with Notre Dame is figuring out creative ways to open the offense and get playmakers in space and, sort of generate easy explosion throws in the offense, that to me is not where Notre Dame excelled last year. Even as good, I think Ian Book was not even just good. I think he was very good. And I talked about this last year. I think Tommy Rees held him back and held that offense back creatively. If you look at even in the wins, so
yeah,
I just think the Jack Coan element is not necessarily going to be a revelation in terms of his downfield ability.
No, I don't think so either. And again, it's there are some folks who are very optimistic about this. Oh, he's going to give him a vertical threat. He's a different kind of quarterback. They can unlock the passing game, which, if you say so,
95th Wisconsin's marginal explosion in 2019.
Yeah, I think that takes a great deal of wishful thinking to expect that Jack Coan is going to come in and provide that kind of presence at quarterback. I've been saying for months I was really impressed with Tyler Buckner. In the spring game, maybe we'll see him by the end of the year. I don't know. Maybe that represents a bad season for Notre Dame if we see Buckner.
If you're throwing a true freshman in there, yeah.
Nonetheless, there are many different ways that you can play it. Notre Dame's schedule is interesting, and they do this. They're like masters at scheduling teams that are good enough to make a bowl game and good enough to bolster their resume come playoff time. But there aren't any real killers here. Like they drew Clemson last year, but
Wait. Cincinnati is a killer.
Really?
Yes. Cincinnati was 2 minutes away from beating Georgia in a bowl game. JT Daniels, Georgia. Now they lose
Cincinnati against Notre Dame should not. Notre Dame should handle Cincinnati. I do not view Cincinnati as a killer. I do not view Wisconsin as a killer this year.
Oh, I think Cincinnati's more of a killer than Wisconsin. Cincinnati was a top 10 team. They weren't a cute story. This is a good Cincinnati team. A really good one.
The four toughest games on the schedule are Wisconsin, Cincinnati, USC, and North Carolina.
Okay.
Now, those are good teams. No doubt. They are good teams. They're not Alabama. They're not Clemson. They're not Ohio State. Notre Dame's good at finding these teams that are in like squarely in 9-3 territory that will help them get to the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is. That's exactly what the schedule is. And so it's fine. It's a tough schedule. It's certainly not going to work against them. But it's there for them, is I think my point. If they can get themselves organized, you could mount a case for another 12-0 campaign, or another undefeated campaign, I should say.
Rank for me the three likeliest losses in order for Notre Dame.
Probably USC or Wisconsin first. I would say followed by Cincinnati, followed by North Carolina.
Man, I don't know. So Wisconsin's neutral site, NFL Stadium, and they have Cincinnati the week after that, correct?
The week after. So here's the interesting quirk, and you may have seen this in the notes I jotted down, but all of Notre Dame's toughest games are against opponents coming off of bye weeks. 6 games against teams coming off bye weeks. So that's not a great spot for Notre Dame. It actually works out pretty well for their
Cincinnati coming off of a bye week before playing Notre Dame, body blow theory, Wisconsin.
Cincinnati is very good. Cincinnati is not a killer. They're not a killer in the same sense that Ohio State's a killer. They're not even a killer in the same sense that Wisconsin's a killer. They're very good. They're a very good team. It will test Notre Dame a week after Wisconsin.
Current Wisconsin? Okay.
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
But I think this Notre Dame team is constituted in a way that 8-4 is probably the floor. If you want to get crazy and say undefeated season, you could do that. You could make that case. My stance is I don't worry as much about the teams with the good offenses because I think their secondary is going to be really good. And the secondary is going to be really good. I think the defense is going to be really good. But I am worried about that stretch at the end of September and early October when they've got the neutral siter against Wisconsin, then they've got the Cincinnati game, and then they've got a road trip to, I guess, Virginia Tech. Like you could see it. Yeah. That maybe by the way, those are two. Where it comes off the swivel.
Wisconsin, Cincinnati, and USC, North Carolina are both grouped together. Yeah. So those 4 games that you identified are all quick succession.
I don't look at the schedule and see like a gravitational team like I did last year with Clemson.
Sure.
And I think Notre Dame has advanced to a point where if those games aren't on the schedule at all, there's enough depth, there's enough talent that you could very easily mount a case for another undefeated campaign. Now, I don't honestly believe that with Jack Coan or whoever being the starting quarterback.
Yeah, this looks like a 10-2 team to me, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But I don't look at the schedule and quiver. I think they're all winnable games if they can get themselves together.
Yeah, man. I think Wisconsin's defense should be good. I haven't gotten wet in that Wisconsin pond yet, but
settle.
Sorry. But Cincinnati coming off the week after that Wisconsin. If you're not worried about quarterbacks, that's fine and it makes sense. But now you're talking about Jack Coan throwing into, having Myjai Sanders coming off the edge and throwing into what should be another very, very good Cincinnati defense. Obviously, there's the weird Notre Dame Cincinnati relationship with Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman. Didn't Michael Young transfer? Michael Young transferred from Notre Dame to Cincinnati. Gunnar Kiel. There's this weird, AlphaTauri Red Bull. That's a very specific F1 reference, but that they have this weird symbiotic situation between the two schools. So no, that's where I'm insulted as now a Cincinnati pseudo expert.
10-2.
Yeah.
Where are we going next?
Is there a problem, by the way, if that was the issue last year, if it was just occasional Javon McKinley, where they didn't have a breakout receiver to really scare defenses and gravitational? Is it Mayer?
Michael Mayer, probably. Okay. They've been talking up Kevin Austin forever. Yeah. I'll believe that when I see it. Kyren Williams is a problem. And Chris Tyree could be a problem, depending on how they use him.
It's just more at receiver for me, yeah.
Yeah. It would be Michael Mayer. And you can't cover him. There's nobody really who's going to be able to cover him. But he's not exactly a vertical threat. It's
so nobody on the Claypool, Floyd, Tate. No. Yeah. So that's
nothing like that. Maybe somebody will emerge. I don't know, but not on the surface.
You mentioned Brian Kelly's recruiting success along the line of scrimmage on both sides. I don't know if it's because of the Marcus Freeman hire, but Notre Dame's recruiting has been on fire, right?
They've been incredible. They've got the number 2 recruiting class. I think it's next year or maybe
number
the year
2 or
after,
3, yeah.
Each of the next 2 classes are just amazing. So
I assume it's Marcus Freeman if that's the big coaching change. I don't know if it was a strategic thing, but really impressive.
Really impressive.
Hey, thanks for watching. Consider, if you haven't, subscribing to the channel and hitting that little bell to be alerted and listening to the podcast at solidverbal.com.